Okay, okay, my friend, we are on. Good evening. Good evening, everybody, and welcome once again to the Speak Your Truth with Mark Ross podcast. I am your host, Mark Ross, and with me, I have to discuss his life and his music, Mr. Rick Della, uh, what's that? Rick DellaRatta.
That's correct. That's good.
DellaRatta. I wrote it
DellaRatta,
down.
yeah.
I wrote it down and I'm like, okay, where is it? Okay, okay. So Rick DellaRatta, tell us
Yes.
about yourself and what do you do?
Well, that last name was like technically it's Della with a capital D, then a space, and then a capital R. But
Okay.
if people will mess it up, so I had to just put the two together. I keep the D and the R capitalized, but I put the whole thing together. Otherwise,
Right,
I don't know what anyone's going to call me. You know what I mean? I don't
right.
know if they're going to think Della's my middle name or whatever. It's just the way that goes. But my thing is, I realized at like back in the at least the 1990s, if not before that, being a musician, that music is it's a game changer because it reaches people even if words can't. You know what I mean?
Yes,
Even
sir.
if religion can't, or race or creed. So anything that divides us, music can cut through. And so I realized that and it only got reinforced with each passing tour and each passing concert and whatever I did,
Hmm.
piano bar, whatever gig I was doing, it only became more true. So when 9/11 happened, I was just like they say, luck is when preparation meets opportunity. And I was prepared to respond to that. And the problem is I had to respond to it because I was watching it from less than a quarter of a mile away on the
Hmm.
roof of my building in the Lower East Side. So I didn't have I had no choice in the matter. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
was like placed in this luxury box seat of a tragedy. And I had no choice. I had to have some kind of response somehow or other. And I was able to do that with a poem that I just called Jazz for Peace. The words just came out watching it. It wrote itself. And then
Hmm.
I just called it Jazz for Peace. And then I started to live up to the words of the poem. So that's kind of what I've been doing ever since. So it turned out to be an opportunity for me because sometimes you look at a musician and you're like, oh, well, he just, practiced a lot and now he can play music and good for him. But the journey of music can be a spiritual journey. It's an
Yeah.
intellectual journey. It's a philosophical journey. There's all
Yeah.
kinds of things. So I was able to express myself as a human being as well
Mm.
as a musician from my response to that tragedy.
Awesome. Now, you said that you got this after the 9/11 incident.
As far as Jazz for Peace.
Right.
Yeah.
Take me back to because you stayed not that far from the action. Real quick, give me a glimpse of what you saw.
Well, I didn't know I was that close to the World Trade Center, but the thing about Manhattan is it's an island. It's relatively small. People think New York City is so big, but the island of Manhattan is not that big. And
Okay.
so I'm in an area called Hell's Kitchen that's closer to Midtown. It's more Times Square, but back down there, I was down in the East Village, and I didn't realize I was less than a quarter of a mile away until they roped it off the next day, and they roped off where I was living. I'm like, what the heck? Are you roping this off? You're in the quarter of a mile zone, buddy. You got to ask permission to get in and out. I mean, to go
Hmm.
grocery shopping, I had to go through, and there was a giant tank like on my street, like a Sherman tank. It was, just, it was like, there were things that would make you feel like you were dreaming, like you were not
Yeah.
this can't possibly be real. Because I remember that day, one thing that I thought was really like, and this leads me to believe like we are really gaslighted in general, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
We're believing all kinds of crazy stuff that we don't even know it. But
Okay.
there were people walking up my street because they were walking from the tragedy. They're just walking up the street, and they were all silver. They were like silver people. And it was like,
Silver.
now those people must be like going to a Halloween party or something. They can't be like, who are they? Like, what are they doing? Well, they're
Hmm.
silver because of all the, you know what I mean? The soot when the
The
buildings
soot.
came down,
Yes.
covered. And they were like silver people. They were not like unrecognizable as far as like, how we would normally, you would see a person. There was something out of a movie, like a Michael Jackson Thriller video or something. It was like zombie-esque, They were like kind of like zombies, and they were all silver from the soot. And I was like, that can't have anything to do with that. They've got to be going to like a Halloween party. But then I'm like, Halloween isn't for another month and a half. So how this is what your brain's thinking, because it's just so confused,
That's wild. That's wild.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I mean, I know it must have been pretty traumatic to be that up close and personal to all
Well,
that.
yeah, it was just so far out of the box, And the thing is, though, with a lot of the problems kept lingering because the air was not bad that day, where because the air did not blow into the direction of New York City, so the wind was blowing all of that. So everybody in Jersey really got messed up with the pollution,
Jersey.
Yeah, across the river, it blew out. It blew away from New York City. So I was like, okay, after a couple of days, I'm like, okay, well, there's going to be a problem with the air, but there was a problem with the air in New York City because no one told us that it was smoldering down there for months. I mean, like 7 months. I think it was 7 to 9 months. You could look it up to be exact, but at least 7, could have been as many as 9 months. There was smoldering, smoke coming out of that thing. It was crazy. It was crazy.
So what got you involved in the music, Rick?
To be honest with you, I was dancing with my grandmother and aunt, and there we were dancing, and there was music being, like from a record player or something, and it could have been the Beatles. It could have been anything. I Want to Hold Your Hand. I could have been anything. And so I remember that moment thinking, who are these people that are bringing us all of this joy? Like that could like, maybe I might want to be one of those guys, So I just remember that. And then another incident happened where I was really placed in front of the instrument, and that was it was a Christmas morning where I had been staying up to try to catch Santa Claus, and my parents were not happy about me trying to do that. Of course, I always fell asleep. I never saw him. Slept like 2 or 3 years in a row. And I was determined this one year, and something came in through the door that was giant. And the person behind it was fat, like a big roly-poly guy. It was a piano mover, but big roll. I figured that must be Santa Claus. I don't want my parents to see me, but I want to see. So I was like, okay, Santa showed up, and he brought something giant in that couldn't fit down the chimney into the front door. And I'll figure out what that is tomorrow. And the next day, I was like, whoa, what the heck is this? And so I started trying to figure it out on my own without anybody catching me or knowing. Just figured I'd learn this thing secretly,
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about your Jazz for Peace
Okay.
thing going on. So what got you? Now, I know you mentioned earlier that it started with a poem.
Did start with a poem.
So go from there. What led that poem to be what we now know as Jazz for Peace?
Well, I mean, I'm sitting there at the end of a very bizarre day. I mean, as bizarre as you can imagine, because, we had never experienced anything like that. Like I knew people that went overseas and experienced things like that. People went to Vietnam, but like I had never been drafted. I'd never been in the army. I'd never, experienced. So I'm at the end of a very strange day. And all I have to show for it is this poem. And I'm just looking at this poem, and I'm like, I don't know what to do with this thing, but this is all I got,
Yeah.
I don't know what to do with it. So I started to get into that kind of vibe where like, whatever's going to happen is going to be revealed. I don't know. And rather than me trying to figure it out, which I'll be running on a hamster wheel trying to do that. Let's let the game come to me and see. I'll just hold on to the poem, see what happens. Well, 2 weeks went by, and then the country opened up again for, travel. And it was right in time for a jazz festival that I was the headliner at in Savannah, Georgia. So I'm like, I don't know. I guess the next thing I'll do with this poem is read it, because I said to them, how many people are going to be at this thing? Like 8,500 people, and they're all going to be at your show because you're the headliner. So that's rare. It's not every day that a situation like that comes up. And I'm standing in front of 8,500. I mean, I was starting to feel sorry for Edgar Allan Poe and real poets. You know what I mean? Because these poor guys, their even mother probably didn't even listen to their poem. And I'm only wrote one poem and I'm just going to be heard by 8,500 people. But, you know, I recited the poem. And as you can imagine, you know, a poem like that after a tragedy of the first day that everyone's really, you know, so it resonated, you know, affected a lot of people and it worked its way north. You know, I mean, the joke I tell is that in the Civil War, Sherman was marching south, you know, but my poem was working its way north. And by the time I got back here, you know, up to New York, I had another high profile event. And they were like, what the heck did you do down there in Savannah, Georgia? Like, what the heck is going on? I said, look, I mean, I wrote this poem. I read about, well, are you going to maybe put that to music for our concert? I mean, like, you know, so they people put the bug in you, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I was like, well, there's the next step with this poem. If there's going to be a next step, it's going to be to put it to music. So I said, well, maybe I might, I don't know, you know. So and the thing was coming. So I had a interview, like a pre-concert interview. Sometimes they'll do that. They'll call you before and they'll write an article before. So this guy called me up on the phone and he wanted to hear that poem. So I recited the poem that came out published now in his article. And then he just was talking to me back and forth. And I just happened to say to him, I said, you know, because we were talking about, has the world changed? What's going on? What, you know, what are we at war? What does this mean? I said, listen, if we would all as a species just embrace our greatest qualities, you know, we have a long history of, you know, qualities like humanity, qualities like creativity, intellectuality, you know, all of these greatest qualities, you know, if we would embrace them together, we would have a better chance at avoiding the behavior that leads to destruction. And I just said it off the top of my head. Well, that also got lifted by famous quotes websites. And I started to find out years later because someone would call me, you know, hey, we heard you were in San Francisco a few months ago. Can you send us some information on that? We might want to have you back or whatever it was. And I'm looking for that. I can't find what I'm looking for, but I see somebody listing 50 famous quotes and I see, you know, how Google will give you just a few words, you know, of, I see my name, you know, I'm like, what's my name doing on this guy's favorite quotes website? I didn't even know I had a quote. And I click on that, you know, and there's like Gandhi and Einstein and somehow, and I'm like, how did he even know about that? And then I started to find out it's been lifted and it's on famous quotes websites all over the place. So that happened. The poem got published. Then when I performed it, the articles came out. DellaRatta starts concert out with jazz for peace. So as you can see, it was a series of one thing leading to another thing, leading to another thing. And me trying, basically, you know, just old enough and slipped on enough banana peels to be patient and realize that, look, you know, you don't have to take another step, but if there is another step to be taken, it will be revealed, you know?
Yeah, yeah. So are there any other musicians that are in this Jazz for Peace?
Well, there's so many musicians have been a part of it. In fact, I'm so glad you brought that up because, you know, you think of stuff just out of the blue. And I was on a podcast earlier today, and the woman was telling me about an arts festival that she does in the Caribbean. And the island next door is an island. And she said, you know, a lot of people that you might know were on this island. She says, you know, the Rolling Stones and this one and that one. And she mentioned all these people. And then I was like, whoa, that's the island. The island. I know that island. And the reason I know about that island is because I started doing concerts like, again, like, what am I going to do next? Right. I was telling you, what am I do now? I got a poem. Oh, now I play. Now I'm going to do that. So I'm like, I guess I'll just do some concerts in New York and call them Jazz for Peace. So I start doing a weekly thing in a youth hostel, the basement of a youth hostel. I start doing a weekly Jazz for Peace concert. This guy shows up. And I had known him from playing in Brazilian bands. He was a percussion player. And, you know, I hope people listen to this podcast. What he did was very smart. I mean, I knew it was smart when he did it. He showed up and I said, man, you know, I love your playing. I love it. This is just a little thing, man. I'm just like trying to, you know, I'm just trying to survive. You know, I don't have a budget. You know what I'm saying? He's like, man, I am I am gifting you to, you know what I mean? He's like, I'm doing this to support I'm doing this out of support. I'm here to support you, he said. You know what I mean? I
Right.
said, listen, Curtis, if I don't have to, give you, of course, I'm going to throw you on the stage. But I don't have to, pay you with money I don't have. Yeah, of course, Rick, I am here to support. So that's what I'm saying. There were musicians like that would just want to
Mm.
support what I was doing. They knew who I was. I'd been around and I'd been there and done that, played in a lot of bands. A lot of people, plenty of people knew who I was. This guy comes and does that. And let me tell you something. When we went to Africa, I couldn't wait to pay him back and put him on that gig to Africa. You know what I mean? I called him up and said, hey, man, you ever been to Africa? No, I've never been to Africa. I said, well, you're going now. If you got your schedule, if your schedule works, you're going. Anyway, he had been signed by a major label at one time and was down on that island playing with the Rolling Stones and all those kinds of people that are on this island that this woman was talking about. So, the 6 degrees of separation. But just to give you an idea, many musicians, all types of scenarios, have played with Jazz for Peace. I mean, we even had the Jazz for Peace big band. And I had an arranger. And I told this guy, I said, look, if you can arrange the jazz, if you want to arrange the Jazz for Peace music, I will put you in front of this big band and I will fly you around whenever we have a big band opportunity. And he said, yeah, put me down. And I did. I flew them all over the country.
Nice.
And then we would pick up the musicians in the different, like in San Francisco, we'd play it'd be a San Francisco big band with one guy because I needed him to, bring all the charts, rehearse the musicians. You know what I'm saying? So that I could, I was still in one piece by the time of the show.
Okay. That sounds great. I mean, there's definitely that evolution,
That's right. It evolved. Like I said, I kind of just let the game come to me. I let things reveal itself, and it did. It evolved in all kinds of shapes and sizes, like you would not believe.
Yeah. Now, I know that before we started the podcast, we talked about how music can affect mental health.
Yes.
And we came to an agreement that music can absolutely affect the quality of one's mental health or even improve it. Right?
Mark, I would probably be crazy myself if it wasn't for music. I mean, I think you're crazy not to embrace music. I think you'd be crazy. I think you are tempting your mental health if you don't do that, because music is an opportunity to literally like fill up your tank. You know what I'm saying? You can refill your tank because people go crazy because they get emptied. They get emptied out, and they get emptied. And when they get emptied out, when you try to draw from a well with no water in it, that's where you can go crazy. You follow me?
I follow.
But music can refill that up. It can fill up your well. Do you know what I mean? It can rejuvenate you constantly, constant rejuvenation. And again, it boils down to my famous quote. When you embrace music and the arts, you are now filling up your soul with all those qualities that I was talking about. Creativity. Well, if you embrace garbage music, that's on you, but there's a lot of music out there. You can find some creative music and now you're embracing creativity. You can find some thought-provoking music and now you are stimulating your intellect. Do you know what I mean? Sure. You can find musicians who have gone another mile for our species, for our planet, for our rights. You know what I mean? And now you're embracing humanity. And when you listen to the music of Jazz for Peace, what I try to do is I try to do a presentation that has all of those things in it. Do you know what I mean? It has all of those qualities so that, because, a lot of music is just to sell beer. I mean, these people are like, we're just gonna, we're gonna give you only the entertainment part. We're gonna chop off all the rest and just give you that, so we can collect your money and or to sell a product, or to background music, which is fine, but it serves a purpose. But music, if you look at it historically, I mean, places that I've traveled and I met indigenous people, man, music is medicine for a lot. It's literally heals people. It heals people. There's a movie about it in it's not Nepal. I've been to Nepal. It's actually Tibet. Right, the next country over from Nepal is Tibet.
Okay.
And this guy went out there to film these people, and he just got blown away by an incident that happened, and he made the whole documentary about an incident with a camel, and it was called The Song of the Weeping Camel. And this was a situation where these people, their animals are important. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't, it's not like here where you can, go buy another cow.
Yeah.
That's it. They live off of a certain couple of things.
Sure.
And they had this camel that was very important to them, to their whole
transportation, man.
What?
That's their transportation.
You got it. It's something important to them. It's a necessary thing. The camel gives birth to an albino camel, and it won't accept it. Will not accept its own child. They can't have this camel die because they need it in the family. This camel's literally, the baby camel is part of their family, actually. So they are with a giant bottle, actually, themselves feeding the camel because the mother won't. And they are trying. And now the guy's got his camera, he's filming it. And now this is like front and center. He's filming it's almost like Roadrunner, where they're trying to trick up another way to catch the Roadrunner in another way. These guys are coming up with every technique in the book to try to get the mother and the child together again. But it's an albino and the mother won't accept it. And they're trying this and they're trying that. And at the end of the day, after they're all out of bullets, they say, and this guy was translating it. And it was, when you watch the movie, you watched it in the, this is an old movie. You'd watch it in the text, English text. Sure. That's it, folks. We got to go get, that's all. That's it. We got to get, they're talking. We got to get the musician. There's no way. We got to get the music. They got to get the musician. Well, where's the musician? The musician, there's no cars there. You know what I mean? There's no phone. There's no internet. The musician is 2.5 days away by camel, not by camel. I think they took like a donkey. 2.5 or 3 days away by a donkey. They have to go. That's why they tried everything they could. They got to go find this guy now because they can't call him. They can't. There's no messenger. There's no mailman. They got to go with a donkey and hope he's still there and find him. And they find this guy and they bring him back. And this man with armed with all these musical instruments, he conducts a medical procedure. And here's what he does. He comes like a healer. He puts the instruments. They bring the mother and he puts the instruments all over the mother. These are the instruments. You know how instruments resonate when the sound?
Yes.
He puts the instruments on the mother. They're all around the mother camel, right? And then he puts other things around that the sound, that resonate in the sound. You know what I mean? Other things. And it's like a big setup. They get these guys holding it. Now they bring the little baby camel and the mother's screaming and yelling, wants to get out of there. And he starts playing a violin. And the violin is resonating in the things that are it's resonating into their bodies. It's resonating in these other devices that he has, these little things he brought, hollow things and stuff. And he plays and he plays and he plays, could be 12 hours, whatever it is, until the mother breaks down weeping. And I mean sobbing, pouring tears out of this camel.
Are you serious?
It's I'll tell you, you got to watch it. It's called Song of the Weeping Camel. And I think you could find it on the internet for free even and watch this thing. But there's the power of music. And these people have known about this for centuries. So this goes way back. So yes, music and mental health, I mean, it's a big thing. And I've been on mental health podcasts, numerous ones. I mean, this isn't even my first one.
Sure is. And I know you mentioned during our initial conversation something about dealing with PTSD yourself, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I've been in situations where I had to get through a small hole to get to a wide open space. You know what I mean? And this is the arts can be very traumatic. There are family issues that have happened dealing with people, addiction, things like that. There's narcissism. There's a lot of
Mm,
narcissism. Now, I don't know if
mm,
it's always been, I'm sure it's always been in the world, but right now it's a phenomenon that's coming out of the closet on YouTube
sure.
with all these people. I mean,
Sure.
these people have a chance that are experts on it, or that at least offer a lot of information. I mean, there's the people coming to their channel is unbelievable. And
Mm,
yeah, I found myself in a situation a few times where I had to overcome PTSD. Now, the very first time I had it, I was attacked in the subway in New York City.
attack
I
on the
was
subway.
attacked in a subway at 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'm just waiting for a subway to go downtown. And I was a kid. I was new to New York City, and these kids just come over, and they're like, come over to me, and I'm like, what are you guys doing? I'm like, before I know it, someone had hit me in the pipe with an eye, in the eye with a pipe.
Oh my goodness.
Blood was all over the place. I'm holding myself like this. One of them's trying to rob me, and I'm holding my, like, down here. I'm crunched, and I'm trying to cover up so they didn't rob me. But at the time, I thought they blew my eye out of my socket. So I'm holding my eye in like this and trying to find a way to get to a hospital. And after that experience, I had serious PTSD because
Sure.
you couldn't walk past me if you got within a foot of me. So when I rode the subway, there was a couple times where I went, "Whoa, whoa," like that, like yelled at people because I wanted to make sure I was ready. You know what I mean? And the craziest thing happened.
Hey.
I had an eye surgery, and I was in now about a year later after that. Actually, I was playing with a band called the Platters, a very famous band from the 1950s, and I had to play with a patch on my eye New Year's Eve. I had to play a New Year's Eve gig with them with a patch over my eye in Bermuda. Should have been a great party, but it wasn't because I was, and I was maybe a year after that or a couple of years after that. It was, could have been 3 years. I was at the airport, and I'm in a line waiting to get on a flight to Martinique to play with a band in Martinique, on the island of Martinique. Someone wanted me to play in his band and wanted to play my original music and everything. And this guy taps me on the back behind me, and he says, do I know you? He's like, do I know you? And I said, well, do you live in New York? Yeah, I live in New York. Oh, do you go and hear jazz a lot? Do you go to clubs? And I'm trying to quiz him to see how he could possibly know me, but he doesn't seem to really know much about music or the music. So I'm like, I think you know someone who looks. So then he taps me on the back again. No, I really think I know you. I'm like, buddy, all right, so let's try again. And I'm trying to
Yeah,
see where we
yeah.
could possibly know me from. But I'm like, listen, it would have to be music. There are some people who do know me in the world related to, but if you never saw me play music, I don't know how you could know me. Finally, he taps me a third time. He says, I know where I know you. I said, okay, all right. Where? He said, I operated on your eye.
Oh, oh, oh,
And
oh.
he
Oh.
said to me, the
Wow.
surgery was very delicate, he told me. And he said, your surgery was so successful. Because I remember after people coming in, taking pictures of me after the surgery and after,
Hmm.
whatever, I was in there a day before they released me. They came in, people took surgery. He said, your eye is in a medical journal because the surgery was so successful. They took pictures of it and they documented it. And I was like, and I remember his name was similar to a beer, like there's a beer called Michelob, and he
Okay.
was Dr. Michelos. Dr. Michelos.
Nicholas.
So, but that incident, I'm telling you, because you know what? I could have lost an eye, man. I came very close.
Yeah.
Was it for this doctor, to be honest with you? If
Yeah.
it was the wrong doctor, I'd have been screwed on that deal.
Would have been
He
over.
was an award-winning doctor, and he told me it was like just an incredible success, the surgery.
Hmm.
And yes, I had PTSD. That was the first time I had it, and I've had it a
Sure.
few times since. And now, you are also, why you've had it? That's why you have this podcast, right? You've had it yourself too.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. As a Marine Corps veteran, yes.
right.
So, yep. And
Well,
that's
and
part.
so that's why I think it's so important back to the problem is my famous quote gets more famous because we keep going the wrong direction here. We've got to get the world involved in filling up all of our souls, all of our people everywhere, with these qualities, so that we will have a better chance. We've got to increase our chances. And music is the way. Music is the way. The arts and culture. I'm
Indeed.
convinced.
Indeed. How often does Jazz for Peace take place?
Well, we've done over
And
800.
where?
Say it
Where
again.
does it to? When? How often and where?
Okay. So where? We've been to Africa, for example, 9 times. Now are you in Chicago? I know you're in the
Milwaukee.
Milwaukee. I'll tell you something. I could use your help getting Jazz for Peace to Milwaukee if you could give this podcast to an outstanding cause in Milwaukee, because I've played in Milwaukee twice and not with Jazz for Peace. I played there once with a big band. It's called the Artie Shaw Big Band. And Artie Shaw, if you ever look this guy up, he was as big as a Michael Jordan. Okay. Because now it's like a sports stars are big, but back in the 40s, the music stars were big. And he was superstar of the big band era. And I played in the Artie Shaw Big Band, and we played at Milwaukee Summerfest. Isn't that something you still have that?
Yes, we do.
We played at Milwaukee Summerfest when I played in that band, and we traveled around in a bus. And that bus would either stop and we'd stay overnight in a hotel, or we did these things called hit and runs, where you get on the bus and the bus has got to drive overnight to get to the next place. But that was part of a long tour, long United States tour. And one of them was Summerfest Milwaukee. The second time was after one of my CDs came out. I was playing with these very famous musicians. Now, these 2 musicians played at the very first Jazz for Peace concert, the one I told you about when they played at that one in Savannah where I read the poem. Yes. And they also played at the one in upstate New York where I finally put it to music, and they put the article, DellaRatta starts concert without Jazz for Peace. But anyway, when I started touring with this band, one of the first places we played outside of New York City was Milwaukee. And the drummer is named Lenny White. He used to play with Miles Davis and Chick Corea and a lot of big name people like that. Yeah. And the bass player was Eddie Gomez, who played with a lot of people from Dizzy Gillespie to, he also played with Chet Baker, and he played with, the great Bill Evans, which you might not know, but he was one of the all-time great piano players. No jazz piano player won't know him. His name was Bill Evans, and he was his bass player for 13 years. Anyway, those 2 guys, we played in Milwaukee, but nice. Since Jazz for Peace has started, when I get to your neck of the woods, I have played a ton of times in Chicago. And those are surrounding areas. Naperville,
Evanston.
Right.
Yeah.
All these little surrounding places. But for some reason or other, I haven't made it to Milwaukee. And it's strange because there 2 articles were done on me by a guy in Milwaukee. And he has a portal called Jazz something. I wish I could remember the name, but he wrote 2 amazing articles on me. And he was like, man, I really would love you to come to Milwaukee, but maybe. Now what we do is we help outstanding causes. So if you know of an outstanding cause, because you have to realize something, my goal at one time was to unite Israelis, Palestinians, and Americans. And I did that at the United Nations in 2002. That was another one of those things of what am I going to do next? And I was like, well, how about a concert at the United Nations where I bring together people from all, and what happened in 2002. Now I've learned that actually music and the arts and culture can solve it all. The only reason, Mark, we're in the boat we're in, I'll tell you why. And it's so simple. War is funded at 100%. And everybody knows it, right? Yes. You see the amounts. They talk about it like it's they're right in your face. We're allotting another 30 billion for this and 20 billion for Ukraine. And they throw these billions around, right?
Yes.
And they never, not even one time we're going to allot this for peace. Here's a couple pennies. Here's some change out of my pocket for peace. No, zero. You cannot do anything at 100% and the other thing at 0% and expect anything. It's a miracle that we haven't blown the whole thing up. all I want to do, Mark, I want to take fun. And I've never found anyone to disagree with me, not an Israeli, not a Palestinian, and not anybody else in the world. I want to take funding for war down from 100% to 99%. Okay. You can still be a psychopath at 99%. But
Yeah.
I want to go, I want to bring peace from 0 to 1. I want one. And to help me get from 0 to 1, guess who I have to help? I have to help outstanding causes. I have to help those who are helping others. We've already done it 850 times. Jazz for Peace. We've done 850 of these, over 850 of these concerts helping outstanding causes. But like I said, to get from 0 to 1, we got to help somebody over there in Milwaukee.
Indeed, brother. Indeed. I mean, if I know anybody or if I run across anybody, hey, I got you. I'll send it.
Just tell him, say, listen, man, this man wants to bring funding for peace from 0 to 1, and he needs to help you to help him on his journey to get to 1%. He needs to help your cause. Will you check him out? Check him out, because if 850 other people could successfully have a Jazz for Peace event with our guidance, with our funding, with our foundation's help, so can Milwaukee.
Indeed. In your backstory that I read on the whatever, but on the Matchmaker page that I met you on, it mentions that you're a philanthropist, Rick. So what is your philanthropy about?
Well, again, I'm sitting there with a poem. Now the poem has music. Now, I'm playing some concerts around New York City. It came to my attention that there are outstanding causes in New York City. And I thought there's got to be at least 15 or 20. I mean, look at all the millions of people that live here. There's over 60,000 registered nonprofits in New York City alone.
How many?
Over 60,000. 60,000. And there are nonprofits all over the world. There are, for every problem you can think of, there are tons of organizations that would love to address it. Now, are all of them legitimate? No, but that's another thing that Jazz for Peace does. We separate the wheat from the chaff. We try to help organizations that really are who they say they are, so that they can increase their donor base and they can get more publicity and awareness, and they can get more sponsors. They can get new and prestigious supporters. It's called an empowerment tree. And that's what we grow. And how did we learn how to grow that? By helping these different organizations and having them call us afterwards. Call us up and say, hey, man, I just want you to know that not only did we, get some money out of this, but we are more prestigious because of you. You know what I mean? Another one, we are more publicized. A lot of people know who we are from that event that didn't know who we are. We are more sponsored. I had an organization once in Dallas call me up 3 years later. You don't have to call me, but we want you to know that, remember they were sponsoring it. Yeah, I remember they were really nice people. They're still sponsoring us every year. They sponsor because of you. So people like Tom. So I'm like, you know what? Let's pass that forward. Let's make everybody we help. Let's get sponsors for every outstanding cause that we help. Let's get publicity and awareness for every outstanding cause. And that's money in another way. Do you know what I mean? And for some people, it's more important than money. So, and money all by itself is not so great all the time. A lot of times it's an enslavement, it makes you dependent on that specific donor. And now you got to do what that donor tells you to do. Yeah, you know what I mean? He might tell you, I want you to do this. I want you to do this. I want you to do what I say, not what you want, not what you even started your organization to do.
Right.
And if you don't do it, you lose all your funding.
That part. I know you mentioned that you wanted to play something from your nice piano over there. So
I'm sitting in front of a piano. So, everybody knows now. It's funny because people think I'm a CEO, like you say, a philanthropist, but I've been sitting in front of a piano since I was a little kid. And even if I became, a CFO, I don't even know all the names, but let's say I was all those names, I'd still be, this would be my desk,
Right. So go ahead.
I'm going to play This is funny now because what I do is, because I used to be a piano bar entertainer. So I used to play requests from people, because that was the gig, you play their favorite song and all that. And the manager's happy, and I tell our volunteers or even people watching, you can literally make a request and it might show up on your podcast if I think I can pull it off. Someone contacted me and said, geez, I would really love you to play this. It's an old standard called The Very Thought of You. I said, that's a beautiful song, but like they said, I heard you play it. I remember you playing it. I said, but I don't remember playing it. I don't remember. You remember me playing it. Where did I play that? It's a great song. No problem with that. But where did I play that song? I don't know, but you blah, 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 blah. And I'm like trying to think. And I'm like, wait a minute. I never played it on a Jazz Reviews concert or even one of my own concerts. I sang this song in a play. So I got in this play once. One time I got messed up because I also ski. I like to ski and I like to go to the mountains and ski. And everything got messed up because I trusted somebody and he took my ski, my deal, and I ended up with. So I'm stuck here and I'm like, man, I got to do something because I got no gigs. So I'm like, I'm going to start acting or something. I'll be a comedian. I'm going to do everything. I got to do anything, because I got nothing happening. And I went to audition for a play. And I showed up and they said, what part are you auditioning for? The part that you have an opening. I didn't know what the heck to say to the person. I just showed up. Well, here, read this. So I'm reading it. I'm like, wow, this is a script about a real goofy guy, like Jerry Lewis type of guy. You know what I mean? Like a real goofball. And the play was called Lab Rats. And it was about these three doofuses, and that's a comedy. I mean, they try to pick up women. They can't pick up women. They can't, you know what I mean? These are people that couldn't hit water if they fell out of a boat. You know what I mean? But they're lab rats. They're like, they're really smart. They're like nerds. In other words, they're like scientist guys, but they don't know how to function. I got the part. So now I have this part.
You got the part.
I got the part to be a doofus. And there were songs that we were supposed to sing. And they were telling me, you got to sing this really goofy. You know what I mean? You can't like sound good or nothing. We got about really goofball. So I'm this goofball guy in the thing, and that's fine with me because I wanted getting some acting credentials. While we're doing rehearsals, there's another part that they can't find somebody for. And this is the guy that gets all the girls. Okay. And the reason they can't find someone to do the part is because they have to come in and sing a song to open the show. And the song they sang has another name, but the melody is The Very Thought of You. It's the same melody. They just changed the words to make it about the show, and they gave it a different title. It's The Very Thought of You. So now I'm watching these people, and I'm in my goofy thing, my goofy script and all, and I'm being a goofball, but I'm watching them audition these people, and I'm like, that's The Very Thought of You. That's a jazz standard. You can't just take a bunch of singing lessons and like sing it like a cabaret song. That's not going to work. You know what I mean? And they're never going to find somebody to sing this song because actors, like they take singing lessons and you know how they sing, right? Big, and they sing like Come to the Cabaret. No, Hello, Dolly, that type of singing. That's not like Billie Holiday. That's not the way they sing. You know what I'm saying? Nat King Cole. I'm on my way to a concert now and I get a phone call and the phone call, hey, Rick, hey, how you doing? Yeah, you never told us that you were like this jazz musician and you're like play all over the way. Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, yeah, I didn't tell you because like I have a role. Like it's called Lab Rats. I'm in the lead role. What am I supposed to do? What do you want me to do? They said, listen, Rick, we can't find it. Tomorrow there's 3 people auditioning for this. And if they bomb, we need you to do this part. Like we got nobody. And they said, if you would do a solid for us, we'll pay you the same. It's off Broadway, so it pays garbage anyway. But I figured if I took that part, I'd get even less.
But you're on Broadway. Yeah, you're on Broadway.
Right. I was off Broadway, but it was fine. But I wasn't complaining. I was a lab rat. The show was called Lab Rats, and that's what I wanted to be. But I had to take a hit for the team. But they gave me the same money. In other words, they paid me the lab rat money to be this other guy, just so I could. But the beautiful thing is that woman who I did that for, I didn't know it, but she's kind of a mover and a shaker and, like in that world. So she's called me to do acting, other things. So now I have an acting resume because she just like thought it was so amazing that I could go from a goofball to like the guy who picks up like total opposites. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So here's the song, but I'm actually going to sing the real words to The Very Thought of You. And let me fix this so I can get it for you. And here we go.
Move it over.
the very thought of you, and I forget to do the little ordinary things that everyone ought to do. I'm living in a kind of daydream. I'm happy as a king, and foolish though it may seem to me, that's everything. The mere idea of you, the longing here for you. You'll never know how slow the moments go till I can be near to you. I see your face in every flower, your eyes and stars above. It's just the thought of you, the very thought of you, my love. The mere idea of you, the longing here for you. You'll never know how slow the moments go till I can be near to you. I see your face in every flower, your eyes and stars above. It's just the thought of you, the very thought of you, my love.
Nice, man. Nice, nice, nice. Thank you. Thank you for that, Rick. I really appreciate that, man.
My pleasure, Mark. My
Yes,
pleasure.
sir. What's next for you in your journey, Rick?
I have a lot of these things right now because I think what it is there's a delay between the artist, a disconnect between the artist and the public. And they say some people say it's literally 20 to 25 years for the public to catch up with the artist. And literally took at least 20 years or 21 years for all of a sudden this fascination with my story, the story of Jazz for Peace, and all that stuff. And just recently a book came out. Let me see that. Here it is. So there is stuff like this new book. I don't know if I can get it. So wait a minute.
Right there.
There we go. It's called, as you can see, it's called The Amazing.
A little closer.
Yeah, there we go. Something like this. Ooh,
Yep. Paving the path for
Peace through music.
Yep. See it right there. Yep.
Yeah. Paving the Path for Peace Through Music, The Amazing Story of Rick DellaRatta and Jazz for Peace. And it's by Deborah R. Saratelli. And it's again, it's an amazing book because it's like 100 podcasts into one. You know what I mean? And so there's the new book, which is a big thing. There's also we are involved in trying to solve world problems now. Okay. So there are issues, right? Now you know that technology is taking away jobs, right?
Sure.
But what we're proposing for that is to take the funds that technology is bringing in. Because let's say technology does a job that a human being was doing, that those funds are still being generated. Take those funds and use those funds to help people who have a dream that would benefit society that they can't do because they can't support themselves while they're trying to do it. You follow me?
Mm-hmm.
So these are kinds of things that we're saying, like that is our solution for that problem. Another solution we have is okay, you talked about philanthropy. I mean, I have an incredible philanthropic solution for you. Okay. We have a trickle down economy. Okay. Everyone knows about it, right? You've heard the term, right?
Yes.
All over the place. You hear trickle down, but is anything trickling? I don't know. Maybe you're getting a little. Yeah. Every time I ask them, they say, I don't feel
I'm
no
not
trickle.
seeing anything being trickled.
That's right. Now, whether it's trickled or not, that is beside the point. Because what I want to introduce to go along with it, to balance it out, is a trickle up economy for philanthropy, for philanthropic purposes. So there are people who want to do stuff, but see, I work with outstanding causes. I see people, Mark, that spend 362 days trying to raise the funds, and now there's only 4 days left in the year for them to do the great work that they're supposed to do. So if you're spending half your time fundraising, how the heck you're going to be exhausted by the time you even get a chance to do what you're supposed to be doing. What we want to do is create the world's first philanthropic cryptocurrency. And with the blockchain, you can make rules so that you have to complete these things in order for the funds to be released. And now we can get the funds to those who need it to do great things for our people and our society first. They get the funding first, and when they spend it to fix that, fix that lake or to clean that air, when they spend it, the funds trickle up. So it's a trickle up economy for philanthropic purposes. Now we also have, of course, we're Jazz for Peace. We have the solution to wars, and I told you the solution to all wars. If peace was funded at 1%. That would be so powerful that it would solve all wars because, and honestly, we have already solved this problem in the Middle East. Nobody wants to implement our solution, but our solution was voted on. 96% of Israelis, 96% of Palestinians, and an even higher percentage of the rest of the world have voted on the Jazz for Peace proposal to resolve the issue in the Middle East. And again, that redirects funds from military activities and redirects the funds to outstanding causes that have a track record and have a commitment to fulfill their mission statement. And by fulfilling their mission statement to help people with PTSD and all of these other kinds of things, we can heal the region.
Nice. How can people contact you, sir?
A great way to contact me is to A, watch your show. And then B, with the knowledge you gain from watching this podcast and listening to some of this music,
yes, sir,
send an email to info@jazzforpeace.org. So that's info at jazzforpeace, jazzforpeace.org with your comment. Because you know what, Mark? An honest comment is a seedling. And with a seedling, we can grow an empowerment tree.
Amen, brother. Amen. Well, I don't have anything else to ask or, speak of for you, sir. So I will let you go. And I really do appreciate taking this time to speak with you, Rick. And I've been blessed to get, some of those little piano chords, man. I really do appreciate that, brother.
My pleasure, Mark. My pleasure. It's always great. I mean, there's so many people who have never heard the music of Jazz for Peace at all, and at least we were able to get your listeners a little taste.
Yes, sir.
Great.
Rick DellaRatta,
Mm.
Jazz for Peace. People them out, info@jazzforpeace.org.
Yes. And our website would be jazzforpeace.org. And of course, there's rickdellarata.com, but that's how you can get a hold of us, the email address.
All right. Info@jazzforpeace.org if you have any questions or whatever you would like to reach Brother Rick here. So, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Mark Ross, and you have just been blessed with another episode of the Speak Your Truth with Mark Ross and Rick DellaRatta. You guys have a great evening and look forward to seeing me again next week. Same bad time, same bad channel. And you guys have a good one. Good night, guys.